On today's episode, I talk about the giant holes in my bucket as a leader and an entrepreneur. And in a very short episode, 10 minutes, I share a couple stories and some clarity on the questions you must ask yourself every day to eliminate rumination and guarantee your progress and growth as an entrepreneur and a leader. And so without further ado, let's cue the intro. And welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. And today, I have a very brief, a very succinct, and a very powerful message from something that I read the other day. So I just got back to Montana, and I was in Austin, Texas, working in one of my companies, Gel Blaster. And to say that an atomic bomb was dropped in my world was an understatement. I'm talking about as far out of left field, the amount of attorneys and things that are unpredictable ever imaginable dropped on my plate. And there were multiple times in 2 days that I was faced with reactivity, with resistance, with anxiety, with fear, even to the point where there are many thoughts and many feelings and many things that I was experiencing where I was looking for somewhere to place the blame. I was looking for somebody to put it on. And luckily, I have a tight inner circle. I have my tools in my pocket, which you've heard me talk about before. And I got to process my feelings. And what I ended up noticing is that the only challenges I was having was that I was refusing to acknowledge the holes in my game. I was refusing to acknowledge the areas in my life that I've fallen out of practice, the skill sets, the mindset, the things that make me a better leader, that make me a better entrepreneur. And it was a massive, massive wake-up call for me because I had been coasting. I'd been coasting for a couple months. Everything's working. Everything's easy. Everything I touched was going. And I got comfortable. And I got comfortable because I started believing that I was great at everything I do. Now, I'm good, but there's always room to improve. And I had fallen out of touch with a level of self-awareness that is required to be successful, to navigate roadblocks or resistance, to thrive under pressure. And luckily, it was the perfect reminder I needed to come back home. And it just so happened that on the flight home, I was scrolling through Instagram, responding to DMs, and I saw this post from Andy Frisella. And this post spoke so deeply to what I was experiencing. And I was like, I need to share this because this was the reminder that I needed in that moment for me to continue. And I want you to understand that we're surrounded by information and I like to consume information. I like to find ideas. I like to find topics. I like to challenge my thinking. And then I like to challenge myself to implement it. And Andy drops some nuggets sometimes that really, really just speak to me. And I love his mindset and I love how he breaks this down and how he shares it. So I wanted to share it with you. And I think a very important concept to remember, to be really cheesy for a moment, is you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. And I know that a part of my overwhelm and a part of the reactivity that I was experiencing is because the gap to where I want to be felt so great. And I had to remind myself of the gain of where I've come from and then pick a few things to put into practice immediately and start practicing and remind myself that every day is a reset. You've heard me say it on this podcast numerous times, that every day I wake up with the mindset, I lost my business, I lost my family, I lost my wife, I lost my kids, and I lost my friends. And I have to earn them back every day, which requires plugging into myself and noticing where I can make changes, where I can change my behaviors, and where I can operate differently. And that's the note of this message today. I think it was Tony Robbins that said most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. And the truth is that every day it's our job. It's my job to flex a muscle. It's to find the holes in my game. It's to identify them. And then it's to make a plan to integrate behaviors or rituals or habits that create a different result. And none of the results are instantaneously, but they're guaranteed to come if I protect them and I prioritize them. And so I want to read you this from Andy because it spoke to my soul. And I think it's one of the best reminders for us as entrepreneurs and us as leaders. Andy says, one of the biggest things I've seen that helps people is just being aware of the fact that there are holes in your game. If you are honestly aware of that fact, it's really hard to not want to improve them naturally. It's when we deny that we have holes in our game that allows these holes to fester and become big problems in our lives. Be aware that you have holes. I have holes. We all do. Don't panic about it. Don't feel guilty. Just acknowledge it and observe how the motivation to get better shows up. Step number 1 is identify your holes. Step number 2 is commit to being better and living to a higher standard. Step number 3, repeat this as many times as you can over the course of your life. And in full disclosure and living in transparency, I have many holes in my game. I have a proclivity when I'm disconnected to run over people, which means I stay so focused on the vision and so focused on the result that there's times I don't notice the collateral damage I'm causing in human beings. Now, this isn't prevalent anymore because I work on it, but I'd say about once a month, my wife, one of my team members, one of my business partners are like, hey, you're disconnected. And in that moment, it's an acknowledgement that I have a hole in my game, and that hole requires focus. So I take the check engine light and I realize, and I ask questions. And I start to realize that in that moment, I became so focused on the result or so focused on the goal, I didn't take humanity into the picture. I take a breath, I ask better questions, and then I implement habits and rituals into my life and into my day that allow me to connect, that allow me to not weigh people on the results that we're creating and to find the humanity first. I know I'm a horrible CEO, which is why we have one in our company. When it gets down to managing people, I struggle because I'm very all or nothing in a lot of the times. And so consistency is not something that I thrive in when it comes to managing people. I tend to be like, everybody get on a call and we'll talk every day for 5 days. And then I'll go dark for 3 weeks because I'm working in another bucket. I'm working on another project. And so I realize that's a hole in my game. And so instead of me trying to change it and feeling guilty about it, I brought somebody in that has a way better skill set in that area and can support me in making sure that I support people the best way that I can. I know I have a procrastination hole. I know that in my day, in the 8 hours I have to work, there's plenty of days that I am super efficient for 7 hours. And then there's plenty of days where I find myself lost in YouTube, lost in research, lost in distraction, creating excuses and excuses for procrastination. And then rather than feel guilty about it, rather than beat myself out about it, I have to understand that that's the hole that I'm currently up against. And when I recognize that hole, I start making micro changes that change the result. I put a countdown timer on my desk. Somebody gifted it to me and it was one of the greatest gifts ever. And I find myself procrastinating, like, oh, there's another hole. Hold on. Let me reprioritize my needle movers for today. What are the 3 things that I want to get done? And what can I do in the next 20 minutes? And I set the timer and I get it done. And that breaks the procrastination hole. And then I schedule again and I schedule again. But this is one of the greatest piece of insights that we can have. I don't claim to be perfect. I don't pretend to be perfect. And I know there's no way that I can be an A player in every single part of entrepreneurship, but I can constantly practice progress. I can constantly examine my holes. I can constantly spend time thinking with them and asking myself, what are the decisions that I can make today that mitigate these holes, not only today, but 7 days from now, 14 days from now, and 30 days from now, without beating myself up and collecting evidence that, oh, I'm not good enough, or look, I can't do this, which actually just festers and makes it worse. And so the first step is being aware. So identify your holes. I identify mine on a daily basis. And when I lose track of them, I have an incredible support system around me that will bring awareness to them and help me find them. And then when I find those holes, I commit to doing one thing in each hole every single day that I can be better. And I don't hold myself to where I am. I hold myself to my potential. And then I set my mind and I get to work on that thing. And I repeat this as many times as possible. And these are the reminders that I need for myself daily. And luckily I have an entire support system around me. But this is the way to win the game. I don't like how my fitness is. Great. Well, I can think about it all day, or I can schedule 20 minutes to work out today and eat one clean meal and do it again tomorrow and do it again tomorrow. And when I break it down to these micro chunks, everything gets easy and the results always follow. But one way that I'm guaranteed to lose the game if all I do is beat myself up, collect evidence that I'm not good enough, and ruminate on that fact, rather than getting crystal clear on what the whole is and asking myself, what are the 1 to 3 things that I could work on today, this week, this month, and focus on this year that will fill this hole and help me become a better human, a better husband, a better father, and a better entrepreneur. And so since it hit me in the soul, I wanted to share it with you today. So that's my challenge for you. Understand that the more aware we are, the more understanding we are of ourselves, the faster we can create the results and the solutions that we want. But we must prioritize progress over perfection. And that's what I got for you today. So I'm going to go finish drinking my cold coffee that's 4 hours old because I've just been recording content like a machine today. And I'm going to end this episode. But I would love to hear from you. If I can support you, if you want to share with me, if you want to send me a DM on Instagram and let me know how I can help you, what you're committed to. I can't hold you accountable, but if you tell me and you tell me you're going to do it, I'm going to check in with you. But I want you to play the game. And one side note before I end the episode, I am the most excited I've been in probably 20 years of entrepreneurship because we just launched our new website. And I can proudly say, since the moment I had a website 13 years ago, 14 years ago, this is the proudest I've ever been of a website. It is congruent. I love it. It's pink. It's my personality. It speaks volumes, and we have many tweaks to make, but I am so stoked on it. I love it, and I'm so proud of it. So if you haven't checked it out, go to our new website. It's mindofgeorge.com, and let me know what you think. I would love for you to DM me, be like, I love this. This is incredible, but let me know because it is one of my proudest moments. And if you don't like it, I'm not changing it. But I love sharing these things with you, and I'm super stoked to have it. So Christian, I love Pixel. Thank you for crushing my website. If you guys are ever looking, he's linked in the bottom of the website. But that's what I got for today. So it's cold coffee time. It's have a beautiful day time. And it's an important reminder, or it's a time for an important reminder that you must realize that relationships will always beat algorithms. But the most important one you have is with yourself. Have a beautiful day. And here's the outro.